One of the biggest bugbears I had in that entire arc is about to become bearable. Hey guys, MasakoX here. Now, as you may know, when I was covering the Dragon Ball Super anime back in the day, we encountered episode 67. Yes, that episode. The Goku Black arc was indeed one of the best arcs in the series, not that that was hard to achieve back then. And if only it had just ended at episode 66 with Trunks getting the win over Zamasu, a lot of the pratfalls and blunders that the arc had could have probably been forgiven, and I most likely wouldn't have had a mild fit over Goku forgetting the talisman. And what did happen was that the focus of today, Trunks and Mai, lost everything. All that they had tried to protect and defend was taken away from them. Sure, Zamasu was gone and all, but so was their future and their timeline and any chance to restore it. Great. Okay, so the question I'm asking today specifically is, what if Trunks and Mai stayed in the past? I have seen a couple of YouTubers do this before, the story, such as Goku T23 and Dragon Star Productions, so I also recommend that you check out their videos and their what ifs as well. But I will ensure to keep my what if separate from their interpretations. I have always said that a what if idea is different with each analysis of the basic premise. No one person owns one certain idea. So, for example, if you guys have a what if Raditz turned good story idea that you want to try out, then go for it. I don't own that premise exclusively, it's just my idea of what could happen. You might have a different idea, so have at it. Anyway, the subject for today is about one particular decision that Mai and Trunks made. In this question, these two are offered a chance by Whis to return to the same time period, roughly, that they were in before everything went south with the arrival of future Zamasu and Goku Black, where Whis could intervene with them and steal future Zamasu before anything could happen. Trunks could help with all of this, but there would be one problem with all of this. There would be two of them after everything is said and done. I always had a problem with this. Whis is essentially just going, oh yeah, there'll be two of you. Have fun with that. I just kept thinking, after all that we've been through with this character, back from Z, from the moment we saw him slice and dice Mecha Frieza, defend the world against Cell, save the future twice from the androids, and that Cell then stop Majin Buu from appearing, and he just gets bussed off to an effective Dragon Ball retirement home in another dimension. I'm sorry, that will not do. So what do you do, Masako? Well, we change it. So for starters, we begin the story right after everyone has frantically returned from almost being erased in a mass erasure of a whole timeline / multiverse. You might be thinking that, oh Masako, no, you'll just get rid of the Zamasu erasure and, cloud thing, right? Well, no, you can't get rid of that. That did happen. And that's not relevant to the actual question, because if it was, then if they managed to stop it, then they'd just stay in the future and our characters would just go back home. There'd be no question to ask. But this takes place also when they've introduced the two Zenos to each other, future, present. There's a massive feast to celebrate the successful destruction of Zamasu, but there are two people who are not feeling particularly hungry, nor particularly festive for good reason. Mai and Trunks are reflecting on all that has happened in the space of just a few days. Not that long ago, they've been defending the Earth, the last world seemingly that hadn't been consumed by Goku Black and his benefactor. It's funny how in all of these stories it's always the Earth that's the last bastion. They may be now in a technically better suited place, but it's not theirs. But at least it's somewhere they know. Whis then consents that Trunks is feeling a little blue, aside from his hair colour. He has just the idea to make everyone happy. Take these two back to their future. Well, I mean, not the same future as theirs, but dang close, I must say. Whis can practically do anything at this point. The writers in Toriyama have deliberately made it that way, so that in any situation in the future and they need to solve something quickly, any plot device, they can just shoehorn any power in should they need to do so. Now, in most media, this could be considered as very forced or very lazy, but when it comes to the likes of a Dragon Ball Angel, it makes more sense and is more palatable. There's a lot about Whis that we don't know right now, so there's enough mystery for him to get away with this obvious plot perk. Trunks and Mai think about this for a little bit, as they do in the original timeline. Mai wants to be reunited with her friends and allies, and that does sway the decision in the actual timeline. She wants to be around them and live a proper future without any freedom fighting or struggling to survive. She wants to have a family with Trunks and not have to worry about who's been offed that day. She most especially wants to put her weapon permanently to bed. Trunks briefly agrees with this, but then a flash of thought crosses his mind that didn't in the original timeline. Now, granted, they would be with their friends from the future, sort of, once more, but they wouldn't be their real friends. Their memories would be different. There are none. The times that they shared as compatriots and defenders of Earth, that was history. Or future history, or whatever. The important thing that Trunks gets at is that no matter what facade they try to delude themselves with, it will never, ever properly replicate their original lives, that original permutation. Trunks then asks Whis, well, can't we just take the time machine back ourselves to the same timeline? Beerus, who had been previously ignoring all of this sentiment, slams his fist down. Boy, I will not have that blasted contraption cause more trouble on my watch. If I find that you are using that thing one more time, I will blast it and you without a second thought. I don't care if you're Vegeta's little sprog. You don't mess with me. You got that? Whis gives Beerus the stink eye and calmly reiterates the same thing. Despite my master's blunt summation of events, he is correct. This multiverse has enough time rings to deal with already. We can do without more of them floating about, even if the same master made one of his own dealing with our Zamasu. Beerus looks away awkwardly, pretending to be very transfixed on a particularly large piece of pie. Trunks turns away and then makes his mind up. Well, if we can't go back, and if we go to the other world we have to share an identity, then we'll stay here. Whis looks kind of curious. Oh? That's a rather pedestrian choice. Present Trunks looks excited. You're really gonna stay? Like for real? Future Trunks looks to his present counterpart. Well, this is a better option than pretending to live an old life. I mean, I got friends here. No, I got family here. Vegeta is pretending not to notice this aside. Future Mai, though, is a little sad that she will never see her friends from the future again, but Trunks is right in a way. Those faces may be the same as those same pals, but the minds behind them would be just too different. Some in-jokes they might have might not resonate, and it would be weird to truly look like their original future. Honor gets up and hugs Trunks and Mai, immediately saying that they can stay here at Capsule Corp and have their own quarters where they can finally relax after years of turmoil. Future Trunks doesn't know what to say at this, but he's glad that, at least for a brief period, he belongs somewhere. Nevertheless, the vision of Zeno destroying his future is something that will never go away. The place that he had fought and defended for all of his life was just taken away by a snot-nosed squirt who apparently is the king of everything. But he can't say such things in front of Beerus. I mean, that wouldn't be smart, and also it'd be rather rude. The next day, when Mai and Trunks would be originally leaving to go back to the future, instead, it has the pair casually strolling around the grounds of Capsule Corp, getting an idea of the lie of the land and planning what they might do now that they have a new home. They could explore the world, seeing it not in chaos. They could explore what this West City was like, and maybe just have a good long rest somewhere by the sea. They'd never been able to have a day where they could just do that, get away from everyone, get away from everything. However, before they can plan any further, there is a surprise visitor. Gohan. Our Gohan, who in the original timeline came to see them off. He has frantically flown over from his place to see if he'd missed Trunks. Well, he hadn't. He never will. Oh, thank goodness! I thought I missed you guys. I heard you were about to leave from Dad. Trunks looks puzzled. We're not. What? We're not going anywhere. We decided to stay here. Did Goku not tell you that? Now, Gohan looks absolutely embarrassed. I am so sorry. How rude of me. I guess Dad wasn't paying attention when you said that last night. Gohan awkwardly laughs, but then regains his serious composure. Trunks, since you're going to be here for the foreseeable future, I wanted to ask you something. Train me. Trunks seems rather stunned to hear this from Gohan of all people, the same person that had pretty much calmed down and offered him ice cream earlier. What do you mean, train you? I mean exactly that. When I heard all that was going down and how much you, Dad, Vegeta, and the others were planning to stop Goku Black and Zamasu, I felt so powerless. I figured it out. I can have strength in more than just power, but first, I need to settle something, and that starts with you. Trunks feels the irony going on here massively. In this timeline, he and Gohan will be training, just like when he was a kid in the future, but this time, it seemingly will have the roles reversed. Trunks would be the teacher, the stronger one, showing this Gohan the ropes. It feels sort of surreal that the same person who had managed to save the world from Perfect Cell was now asking him for help. But in a way, it would be rather great to sort of relive a past instance, but it was different enough to not feel like he was trying to cling to said past. Well, if you think I can help you enough, then alright, let's train, Gohan. Gohan is so relieved that Trunks accepted this, but keen to see if he can regain his footing from when he was younger. Mai is pleased to see Trunks look so relaxed, finally. He can train without the thought of having to practically use it, at least for a while. As for Mai, she has some plans of her own. You might be wondering how she interacts with her past self. Well, the present Mai has been through a lot, but so has the future Mai. The exact same thing happened to her, being made young by the Dragon Balls. But the trials of Goku Black and struggling to live in that world seriously put her in a different mindset. The present Mai was a bit of a brat, having seemingly lost most of her mature composure from when she was an adult the first time. For the first few weeks, future Mai tries to connect with her past, present self, but the latter doesn't seem interested. So, our future version looks to present Trunks for advice.
Oh yeah, I could totally help you there. I know Mai really well. She's pretty cool, but she's quick to react. I mean, it doesn't help being around that peel-off guy. He's a bit of a loose cannon sometimes. I mean, not me though. I'm pretty chill. Just ask my future me. He used to be me one time, so I would know.
Mai is confused at this, but appreciates the moral support. It may take a while to get through to her, but they've got plenty of time now to reconnect and become friends perhaps. It certainly feels less strange than trying to make friends with an exact copy of herself had they made the decision to follow Whis' plan. Meanwhile, the training between Trunks and Gohan begins. Trunks powers up to Super Saiyan Rage at the request of Gohan to see how his own Super Saiyan power stacks up against it, and frankly, it's no contest. Gohan does his best to outsmart the Rage-based powers, but the power gap is just so vast at this point that Trunks realizes that if it continued, Gohan could get seriously hurt, and so they call a halt to proceedings. Gohan is not upset by this though. This power is so strange. It's like a bridge between Super Saiyan 2 and the sort of ki that Dad and Vegeta have. That blue thing, like you're about to manifest God Ki. Trunks then asks about the ultimate power that he had heard Vegeta talk about, and Gohan states that he hasn't been able to tap into it for a very long time, nor does he reckon that he will ever be able to do so again. It's a shame, I know. I spent an entire day watching an elderly Kai dance around me to get it after pulling him out of a sword, and look how I thank him. He expects Trunks to be surprised and weirded out by this, but he's actually not. Trunks spent time with Shin and Kibito training, so he had seen some weird stuff, and is pleased to know that the fabled Z-Sword actually meant something. I mean, I couldn't use it, but that was okay. I had my own sword that I was much more happy to wield. This bonding time is just what Trunks needed to have. You might be wondering why I'm not having Goku or Vegeta train with Trunks just yet. Well, judging from that shot of Gohan saying bye to Trunks at the end of episode 67, I felt like there was some unfinished business there. I thought that Gohan and Trunks might be able to produce much more efficient games right now. Both of them are half sane and at similar levels of potential. If they could work together to come up with something, they could make something that could best, perhaps, the likes of the full-powered Saiyans. Even Vegeta has thought that it could be a possibility. There has been some time since we last touched base. In said time, Trunks and Mai have become very much part of the furniture, and everybody is happy to see them around. They spend most of their time at Capsule Corp, as they have a home on the main campus, away from the main household, so they can have some alone time. Bulma was very keen to have them be as comfortable as possible with no expense spared. They had been through a lot in the future, so they deserved the finest that money could buy. Trunks is understandably grateful for his alternate mother's support, but he was still a very humble and quite frugal individual.
Just so long as we have the basics, we'll be fine.
This was a weird concept for the engineer, but she did accept her son's wishes. But she was still confused why he wouldn't want to lap up the chance for having riches after having to live in squalor for most of his life. Mai was very proud of her partner's decision. It goes to show that Trunks, he's a keeper. In the end, Bulma had more things to focus on. The fact that she was expectant with their second child. And this affected Vegeta and Trunks greatly. Why? Well, Future Trunks never got the chance to be a big brother in his timeline. Yeah, he had people that he looked up to, like a big brother, but it wasn't that direct feel. It was something that he secretly wanted, to have someone to guide and look up to with a familial connection. Now he not only had present Trunks, but now possibly a new child. Mai was excited at the news too, and this was the thing that got her and her younger self to connect properly. They could put their differences aside and have a consensus. They were both thrilled and were enthusiastically planning everything for the babe's arrival. Vegeta couldn't comprehend how they were so calm and why they cared. Well, there was even more important stuff to come. But first, Gohan and Trunks had gotten to train quite a bit, in between Gohan's conferences and work. At first, things were a little rough. Trunks really wanted to help Gohan's work-life balance be sorted out because he could see that Gohan's power had decreased noticeably since the times of the Cell games. Gohan had been very reluctant to realize this, and even though he had originally asked Trunks to train him, his mindset had still not fully gotten behind this new modus operandi. Things came to a head one day when they were sparring, and Gohan was defeated. He took out his anger on a nearby 100-foot boulder, which crumbled to dust.
What's up, Gohan? You did really well today.
Gohan could see through his platitude. You know it. I know it. I'm not cut out for this anymore. I want to protect this world, but I cannot do that whilst providing for my family as well.
You can do this, Gohan! You defeated Cell!
That was a long time ago, Trunks. I had no priorities back then. Now though, I got a kid and a family to provide for.
I can't let Pan and Videl down! What would they think of me?
They would think you a coward!
Gohan and Trunks turned to see Vegeta, looking very haggard but also stern. It looked like he hadn't slept in days, and he had some stubble, but he had a point to prove, seemingly.
I've heard enough of your jabbering, Gohan. It seems to me that you have no faith in your woman.
What? Of course I do! I love her and my daughter more than anything!
Is that so? Then allow her to make her own decisions, instead of doing everything for her.
Gohan's left dumbstruck. Who is Vegeta to tell him what to do in such matters?
You don't provide for Bulma! What do you do for her?
Vegeta looks nettled and powers up to Super Saiyan Blue.
Ensure that she lives, that my family lives.
He powers back down again.
You think I'm not grateful for her assistance in that endeavor? There is not a day that goes by where I am not thankful for her hard work, as well as her resourcefulness.
Well, maybe you should tell her that sometime.
You're lucky that we're on the same side, kid. Otherwise I would have to teach you a lesson for your insolence. I thought you were above such tripe.
The conversation goes on for a little while longer, to where Gohan starts to realize that he has put too much on his own shoulders. After all, marriage is meant to be a team effort. Let Videl do what she wants to do so as to ensure everything works well and that everyone is happy, including Pan. From there, Gohan is starting to get it, and training starts to improve between him and Trunks. As for Vegeta, he may seem settled on the surface, but deep down, he's terrified himself at Bulla's arrival. With Bulma getting rounder and Bulla's birth getting closer, there's another thing we need to discuss: the Tournament of Power. Like in the original, Goku reminds the two Zenos of their tournament idea, and Goku is then charged with creating a team for the contest. When Goku arrives back on Earth, he still gets in touch with Gohan around this time, but at the moment, Trunks is there too, as they were currently training in a specially created space on Gohan's estate, where damage to it wouldn't really cost an arm and a leg to fix. Goku then breaks the news to them, and his son is horrified like before, but Trunks is seething.
Is that monster still not satisfied?
Trunks bursts into his rage form out of nowhere, causing the ground around them to rumble. Goku and Gohan are left stuck to the spot in fear at Trunks' anger. The time traveler gives Goku the evils, them not knowing what's gone into him.
Goku, I refuse to help.
But Trunks, you and I have gotten so much stronger lately.
We could be really useful here.
You don't get it. Nobody does. Zeno destroyed everything I held dear, without a second thought. Black may have ravished it beyond recognition, but at least I had somewhere to call home. As far as I'm concerned, Zeno, he is far worse than Black.
This left the group in silence. Trunks had a point, sure, but still. Goku breaks the silence.
But we need you. If you don't help, Universe 7 may lose and will be erased. I don't say this lightly, Trunks, but I need you.
Trunks is left unfazed, his father's stubbornness very prominent right now.
You got yourself into this, Goku. You can get yourself out.
Trunks flies off, still in Super Saiyan 2, without saying another word. All Goku and Gohan can do right now is stew on the mood before trying to come to terms with the task at hand. Trunks returns to Capsule Corp and tells Mai what happened. She too is left fuming.
How could Goku be so reckless? Doesn't he know the danger he's put us all in? How would he? He's never had to deal with the daily struggle of staying alive. To wake up every single morning and find out who died in the night like it was routine? He knows nothing.
Mai then mentions something that is quite important to remember.
Will Lord Beerus accept your refusal? Probably not, but I don't care. I will not become that freak's plaything. He wants entertainment? He can find it elsewhere.
Mai is getting a little scared right now. This is very out of character for Trunks. He's usually very law-abiding, very conforming, lawful good almost, but here, he's just a wild animal. I mean, sure, he's very impressive to look at, and he's been very alpha, but it's very strange. All she can do right now is to try and soothe him.
I'm right behind you, Trunks. Whatever you choose to do, I got your back.
They embrace and cry it out for a while. The exhibition match goes on like before, and we get to see some of the first team discussions at Capsule Corp with Beerus and Whis present. They are feasting on some cuisine or other on display, with Buller having successfully been born thanks to Whis earlier, and Trunks fortunately being occupied with caring for the babe whilst Bulma's getting some rest. As that was going on, Goku was talking about options for more members, but then Beerus casually points out a flaw.
Say, you're forgetting someone. That time-traveling rapscallion. Trunks, was it? Why isn't he on the list yet?
This makes Gohan and Goku quake with worry.
Well, surely he's just as powerful as you, Gohan. Why isn't he here to help us in our decisions? Well, you see, Lord Beerus, he thought that... Well, come on then, spit it out! He thought what?
Whis looks curious to the answer as well. Gohan's spluttering out a response, and Goku's looking nervous. Then, a voice from behind pipes up.
I thought this was madness!
The group turned to see Trunks carrying a sleeping Buller in his arms.
Madness, you say? You mean you decided not to take part? That's right. I will never bend the knee to that maniac you call a king!
Oh my, this one's feisty. I like it. Beerus gets up and looks darkly at the time traveler.
Say that again. Right up close, so I can hear you properly.
Whis then ceases his banter and is looking concerned. Lord Beerus, surely you're acting a little rash here.
Do not interrupt, Whis. I think I need to make these mortals understand the gravitas of the situation. In a language they can understand.
Beerus places his hand in front of Trunks' face, still carrying Buller, I remind you, and the man is unsure as to what's about to happen, but Goku knows, and he screams out of anger and fear.
Hakai!
In an instant, time stands still, like the wheels of existence stopped turning. Nobody spoke, nobody took a breath, nothing happened. And then, time resumed. Trunks was gone. Goku and Gohan were left horror-struck. In their eyes, Trunks had been erased by Beerus. Gohan was sparking with fury, and Goku was left feeling both livid and guilty. He had been responsible for this. But where's Vegeta? Why hadn't he been here to stop Beerus? The answer came shortly afterwards by Beerus being slapped to the floor. A short, pink-skinned girl was standing over him, looking angrily at him, with Trunks right behind her, looking confused himself.
Oh, no, you don't! You will not be destroying my property, cat!
I should have known you'd show up.
Whis, who had his eyes closed out of foreboding, opened them to see the girl as well. Oh, the Supreme Kai of Time! What a surprise! Goku, Gohan, and Trunks mutter, Supreme Kai of Time? Said Kai is looking daggers at Beerus.
Look what you made me do! I had to break most of my own principles to stop you in your rash actions! You're in more trouble than you're worth!
She pulls a raspberry at him out of annoyance. Beerus grumbles some more.
Say your piece, Cronoa. You always have something to say.
That's Supreme Kai of Time to you!
Cronoa turns to Trunks.
Apologies for the sudden introduction, mortal. I am the Supreme Kai of Time. I just saved your life, but you're in big trouble.
The night air is still. Beerus was just about to shut Trunks up for good for his lack of playing ball with Team Universe 7 for the upcoming Tournament of Power. But then the person that he dreaded the most showed up. Well, I mean, the one that didn't scare him, but more like irritated him. Cronoa was here. She had gotten in the way of the cat, and despite her outward bravery and anger towards him, making her look quite intimidating, on the inside, she was absolutely petrified. She was afraid of Beerus for his fiery temper, but she had gotten the upper hand and the surprise move on him, which was only better for her. Plus, she was here on business, not for a social call. So that meant that she didn't have to stick around for long, and Beerus was not allowed to get in her way. You don't want the likes of Zeno or the time-space continuum to get on top of you now, would you? Getting it all discombobulated? This half-Saiyan had already done enough of that already when time. Trunks was standing there looking down at the small deity. Excuse me, but what are you doing, Supreme Kai of... what was it again?
Time.
Cronoa retorts quite politely. She wanted to rub it in Beerus' face that not all the heavenly beings had to be so cranky with mortals like he was. Whis was chuckling in the background. He did find her funny.
I'm here for you, Trunks, and as much as you seem like a very nice young boy, you're in big trouble.
Cronoa wags her finger in Trunks' direction. What do you mean? I've not done anything wrong. She doesn't seem impressed with what she thinks is him playing dumb.
Now, I may look quite fresh-faced and nubile for my age, but I am not a simpleton. You have done plenty wrong. Okay, I get that you being able to travel through time at all on your own scientific steam is mighty impressive, but it still doesn't let you get away with doing something incredibly dangerous.
Trunks is still baffled. But if we didn't, Goku Black would have destroyed this reality too. Cronoa shakes her head.
We have time patrollers to take care of that stuff, and I'm not talking about that transgression. I'm talking about the first one. A while back, you traveled here to deliver warnings about androids or something, and change the course of history. It meant that you created another time ring, and thusly splintered off the temporal destiny of the multiverse, making it a whole big headache for me.
Trunks blinks, not understanding what she said. She sighs heavily.
You done goofed, kid. You weren't supposed to do that. You broke temporal law with all the stunts that you pulled. Where is your time machine, by the way?
Trunks, not wanting to anger this important person anymore, simply gives her the time machine capsule in his pocket, and she swipes it from him. In the background, you could hear Bulma groaning audibly.
Oh, there goes my scientific awards. Ah. Okay, good. You decided to go the easy way. You are a good kid, but you're not done yet. What you did is a mortal sin, and making time machines is a crime. If you want to be forgiven, work under me.
Work under you? Mutters Trunks.
Do you speak in more than just echoes?
She grunts, getting slightly annoyed with him.
Yes, you work for me now. I say so. If you don't, then, well, I can easily go back in time and make sure that you were never born. Do you really want that to happen?
Trunks gaspes and Beerus perks up his ears. That's a pretty bold punishment there. Not bad. It seems like you have some kind of spine after all, despite your puny stature. Not wanting to lose this illusion of dominance in front of Beerus, Cronoa crosses her arms like an angry parent. Well, more like disappointed.
So, what's it gonna be?
She closes her eyes for a moment and then slightly opens one to see if it looked like that it was scared of her. They were. Good. I understand now, Miss Supreme Kai of Time. What my mother and I did was against the law. For that, I want to make it up to you. He's bowing profusely, and she's quite astonished at how seriously he was taking this. He wasn't too sure of how mortals would handle this sort of talk, but this one was very much in the camp of being very compliant and keen to follow orders. She could do with more of those sorts of people.
Good answer, bucko. Now, what's been going on here, Beerus? Why were you trying to hurt this adorably obedient young mortal?
Wow, that's a mood switch. Going from being really annoyed with Trunks one second, the next second, she's fighting his corner. And Beerus, who had been really just paying semi-attention, jerks his way back into the conversation. I'm surprised you hadn't heard about this since you know everything about events in history and the like. It's the Tournament of Power. It's fast approaching thanks to this bumbling fool. He points to Goku, who blinks confusedly. Cronoa nods. Ah yes, Son Goku. She heard plenty about this guy and would hear plenty more to come. She motions for the cat to continue. Your now pet was refusing to heed our call for help.
All because the Omni King erased what was left of his timeline.
Cronoa looks to Trunks and then thinks about this for a second. Ah yes, Zeno was one for some very brash decisions like this. She would feel more sorry for Trunks, but all this proved what she was trying to say. Messing around with time will just end up blowing up in your face, and in this case, it did, leading to Trunks losing everything. It was a hard lesson to learn, but it was a necessary one. Cronoa was different to most Kais in that she actually sort of understood how mortals felt, and one thing that she had tons of was empathy. She had been there since almost the beginning, and since peoples rise and fall, live and die as well as grieve, coming to terms with tons of events that she was obliged to allow to happen kind of meant that you had to have some kind of a soul.
I see. This tournament, when does it take place? I think about a day or so from now.
Pipes up Goku.
Right. Not that it matters anyway. I'm the Supreme Kai of Time after all. I can get you back here in no time.
Beerus grinds his teeth.
There's nothing little about this. The only thing positively little about this is you butting in uninvited.
She grimaces to herself, keen for Beerus not to notice.
Anyway, I've explained enough. You're coming with me, Trunks.
She grabs his hand and starts to walk away from the scene. Mai, who had quietly watched from the side, then shouts for him.
Don't worry, Mai. I'll be fine. Cronoa seems like a nice person.
She whacks him on the head.
Supreme Kai of Time to you. You're still a bad boy.
The pair disappear, leaving the gang trying to process what just happened, and then having to figure out what to do next. When they get back to Cronoa's headquarters, she then goes through the motions explaining the role of the Time Patrollers. She explains that with her leadership, she and her patrollers go around time, fixing any erroneous situations that are not meant to happen naturally. In short, if any bad energy gets thrown into the mix of the time scrolls, then they had to go and clean it up.
I should have really done the same stuff to the stuff that you meddled in, but, you know, tell you what. If you pull your weight around here, I might look the other way. I didn't want to admit this in front of Beerus Kid, but what you did, I can tell you did for the right reasons. Hence why I stepped in and saved you from being erased. Beerus has got such a hot temper, hasn't he?
You mean there's a timeline where I actually died?
Cronoa twitches a little.
Yeah. It's best not to dwell on that, otherwise that will get you nowhere here.
Trunks nods.
Right. I will do whatever it takes to uphold the role of the Time Patrollers.
She waves her hand.
Cool it, pal. I had a guy like that once, name was Silas. He took the job a little too much to heart. You might want to take it down a notch if you know what's good for you.
But he's still keen to please. She sighs and they proceed with further schooling. Soon enough, Trunks gets to prove himself as Cronoa's assistant and aids in the struggle against Towa and Mira in the hero's arc, the Dark Demon Realm saga. She offers to change his clothes, but Trunks is more comfortable wearing his regular clothes that he had in the Goku Black arc. So, in this timeline, he chooses to eschew the typical Zeno Trunks look, the stuff that you see in Xenoverse. I won't go into too much detail here, but basically, we get the introduction for Trunks into the idea of the Dark Demon Realm, him fighting the Masked Saiyan, which is then revealed, surprise, surprise, to be Zeno Bardock, and the pair are able to push Towa and Mira back. After being able to hold his own against these two pests, Cronoa is very impressed with Trunks' progress, and it then progresses into the whole situation with even more demons with Mechikabura and then the Dark Dragon Balls. Now, I'm not going to actually go on to these events really, because the story in this saga doesn't really differ from the manga in any way in terms of the story beats, but if you do want to check it out, then you can check out the Super Dragon Ball Heroes Dark Demon Realm Mission Saga. It will tickle your fancy. But I'll give you the ending here though if you're not interested. It's a very long story. Basically, Trunks turns into a Super Saiyan God, and he is able to seal the demon leader Mechikabura in an eternal labyrinth and send Dimigra, the boss from the first Xenoverse game, packing. With that, Cronoa has seen her new assistant improve massively.
You know what, kid? You did good. I'm feeling extra generous. Your actions in the past, totally forgiven. However, I still like you have plenty of do for me here.
However, Trunks then thinks about something that he had been meaning to ask for a while that only just came back into his head.
Supreme Kai of Time, do you mind if I went back to the time when you picked me up, please? I have some unfinished business there. I want to help my friends in the Tournament of Power.
Cronoa thinks for a moment.
I'm not sure. Let me check if that's possible.
She then consults the time scrolls and finds out whether this was meant to happen. Fortunately for our boy, it was meant to happen. She smiles at him.
Okay, you can settle this tournament thing, but I want you back here after it's done, you got that?
Got it! Thank you, Supreme Kai of Time!
With that, Trunks plans to head back to the past, seconds after he'd actually left. When he arrives, the gang are left floored. They'd only just seen him vanish off with Cronoa, but one thing was for sure, whatever happened meant that Trunks was stronger now than he was when he left. Vegeta, his father, walks up to him.
What happened to you, boy? What kind of test did you have to do? It's a long story, Dad, but I passed muster for Cronoa. I'm off the hook. Gohan then asked what he was doing back here then. I'm here to help you guys for the tournament. I'm sorry for being so stubborn just now. It was kind of hard to get used to the fact that to them he'd only just left. Beerus opens one eye. Good. Her methods are weird and sappy, but this time they got results. It's about time you shut up and take the situation more seriously. Whis then blinks. Oh, do I detect some god key within you, Trunks? He nods. I had to fight the likes of Demigra. It was pretty tough. Whis blinks. Oh my, that was a test. Well, either way, I'm glad to see you came out the other end in one piece. With that, Trunks gets into the mix of the training, and with him now in the team, we now no longer have the need for Frieza to be called upon for the team. So, therefore, he's out. Mai is jubilant to see Trunks again back, and together they embrace.
I'm so glad that you're okay, Trunks.
I'm more than okay. Not having to worry about time travel anymore? It's such a relief. With Cronoa helping us, I know we can do some good for the multiverse.
We?
Mai blinks. Yeah, you can help out too. We could always do with more time patrollers. Mai shuffles a little bit. About that.
I don't think I'm in a condition to help you right now.
Trunks is left utterly floored. After all of the things that he had seen lately, what with Demigra, the Dark Demon Realm, as well as becoming basically a deity amongst Saiyans and actually looking good with red hair, he was now going to become a father of his own. Trunks was shaking with nerves.
Are you sure? Is this true, Mai?
She nodded sheepishly and placed a hand on her stomach to reaffirm what she had basically just said.
I was going to tell you after the tournament was over, but this whole time travel thing, it kind of forced my hand. I'm gonna be a dad.
She was smiling though, despite her quiet tone. She was sort of apprehensive, not sure how Trunks would react. Her partner's face though turned from fear into relief and then into joy. And seeing joy on Trunks is a very rare sight. This had been actually the best thing he had heard since they'd gotten to the past and had to flee the future. Despite said future being lost now, Trunks thought a part of it would live on, just for a little bit longer, in the form of a child. They embraced one another before Trunks flinched and apologized for, maybe being so vigorous with someone in that condition. But Mai jokingly bopped him on the head.
Don't be silly. This lass is plenty strong enough for what you can throw at me. After all, Black never finished me off, right?
Trunks nodded. That is true, and was reminded that Mai indeed was no slouch or weakling. She'd be fine.
Does anyone else know?
He asked her. She mentioned that only Bulma knew, and she had done everything in her power to not tell another living soul, anyone else, for days. But most importantly, Vegeta didn't know.
Good. He's been through a lot since Bulla was born. This, I fear, would be too much for him to handle. If I'm honest, he'd be a nervous wreck if he knew.
They both laugh at the thought of Vegeta maybe flailing about with nappies and formula, having a grandchild as well. But once again, they hug it out. Their secret is fortunately kept throughout the whole preparation. Thankfully, Vegeta was willing to train more with his son, as well as perfecting his red-haired Saiyan powers with plenty of time in the room of spirit and time, all the whilst Goku, Gohan and Buu were off in the exhibition match. However, Trunks almost let slip the notion Vegeta would be a grandfather on a few occasions, with him being asked advice about what it's like being a father to present-day Trunks and now Bulla. The prince was very confused about why future Trunks would be asking something like that right now, but the thought would pass because training, and it would continue. Now, does Trunks gain the power of Super Saiyan Blue here? Not quite. Vegeta felt that it wouldn't be wise since the time they had was limited, and for him to go in with a mediocre showing of Blue and it not working properly, or even it being more of a hindrance, it'd be detrimental to the Universe 7 cause. So therefore, Trunks instead would refine the powers he already has of Super Saiyan God, and could now easily transform into it whenever he needed to. It was better to hone that, like what Vegeta does with Super Saiyan 2 instead of learning 3. It was certainly much more potent and easy to handle than that Super Saiyan rage power that he'd gotten throughout the whole Goku Black affair. In the midst of all this training though, Trunks still had his irrational hatred for Zeno he was trying to keep under wraps, and even though he was going along with this madman's idea of a fun tournament, he could never forgive this little twerp for being so merciless, erasing everything he had known. Granted, in the fullness of time, he understood it was effective in ridding that reality of infinite Zamasu,
But surely just cleansing the planet would have been enough. That was the source of infinite Zamasu. If you cut Zamasu off from the source, then it would, go away and evaporate from the rest of the universe. It just didn't make any sense. He did everything in his power to keep his cool, but he would be very frank with his father. He felt that he should be.
If I get anywhere near him, I don't know what I'll do.
Vegeta smirked, respecting his son's newfound aggressive streak. He was actually getting more assertive with age.
As much as I share your sentiments about that imp, you won't need to know what to do, because you'll be erased before you get the chance to do anything. Just get this contest over with and then I don't care what you do. Whatever you want to do, do it.
He turns away, trying to not seem too sappy right now. But Trunks gets it, and fully sees what his father was trying to do. He was trying to help. The training is complete, but the night before the contest is due to start, Goku is jumped by the mercenaries of Universe 9, and the Saiyan this time around, with no Frieza, is all alone, wishing he had acted out that idea of bringing back the former Emperor for the contest. His golden power was really good. It would have been very useful. As Goku is doing his best to take out the hundreds of minions on his own, trying to be very careful, Vegeta and Trunks can sense that Goku is struggling with something. They go and rush over to the scene to find Goku heavily breathing, but he has been able to take out the last of the mercenaries hitting the water. But there is one leader left, that Dogmook, who we sadly didn't get a name for, with the ball containing Sidra's Hakai energy. Vegeta scoffs and laments not making it in time to have some practice before the main event. Goku tells the two of them to be careful with this. Don't let that purple energy touch him.
I know what that energy is, Kakarot! Don't talk to me like a simpleton!
But as soon as Vegeta's breath had finished, Goku had been struck with it. The energy connects, and his two teammates are left horrified at their friend, screaming in agony. Vegeta blasts the assailant in the chest, sort of like what Frieza would do. I mean, it's reactionary.
Kakarot! Don't let that energy consume you! Whis didn't train you up to fall now! Focus!
Trunks is left stunned. Is this more of that energy that Zeno provided or something? It was hideous, so evil and destructive. The memories of Zeno erasing his reality flooded to the surface again, just when he thought he suppressed them, and he joins in his father encouraging Goku to fight it. Sadly though, he's powerless to do so, and he has no time to power up to Blue to have a sporting chance. I mean, if you're in the middle of really blood-curdling agony, you're gonna struggle to focus on anything else. That is until Beerus and Whis show up.
Seriously, Goku? This is bothering you? What did we train you for?
Beerus just flicks the energy off of him, and he goes spiraling off into the sky and explodes in space, lighting up the night sky. Goku falls to the ground below, and Trunks goes to tend to him. Whis then spots the communication orb that the mercenaries had and picks it up, thinking if there might be someone on the line. Hello? May I speak to whoever's on the other end? It's frightfully important, don't you know? Ro and Sidra are panicking. Whis? He found out? Oh, they be in for it now. They try to remain silent, but the quivering sound of Ro's voice is enough to intrigue Whis even more. Beerus notices it and snatches the orb from his attendant and barks into the receiver for anyone on the other side to fess up. Sidra is heard whispering to Ro. Beerus's ears are very keen. He recognizes that voice at once.
Sidra! I should have known you'd do something so cowardly. What? Did Ro put you up to this?
Sidra is getting even more flustered now. He's a bit of a wimp, and begs Beerus to not tell the Omni King about this. He's sorry about this, but Beerus has no intention to be sparing with these clowns. He had despised these two, especially Ro, for a very long time. Besides, he could lord over these two, since their mortal level was below theirs, Universe 7's. He was the only realm that he could do this to right now, until his own goons could get their act together and improve their mortal level, and Shin, pull this weight.
Whis, do kindly inform your padre about this misdemeanor. I'm sure he'll be quite keen to hear about this little farce.
Whis nods and takes the communication orb and teleports himself to the GP's place. As he does that, Beerus picks Goku up and tosses him to Vegeta.
I think Goku will need one of those beans that you have. He's not going to get out of this tournament that easily.
Vegeta laughs while Kakarot's unconscious and appreciates the sight of him looking weak in front of Beerus. Meanwhile, Trunks asks Beerus a question.
Lord Beerus, what's going to happen to those people who try to kill Goku?
Beerus casually explains that, they'll most likely be erased, since they were breaking the rules after all, and codes of conduct. You just don't do that with that thing. Trunks is spitting fire.
Zeno will probably enjoy doing that.
Beerus walks up to Trunks now, getting almost as close as he did when he almost destroyed him earlier.
If I hear one more word about him and you trying to destroy him, boy, I will do unto you what will befall those morons. Understood?
Trunks gulps and nods quickly. He can't be so careless now that he knew that he was expecting a kid. With Goku now recovered thanks to a sensu bean, the team is ready to set out for the tournament. When they indeed get to the world of Void, the team spot loads of different beings and creatures from different universes. It was quite a sight to behold for Trunks despite his recent antics with dark demons and time patrols. However, something wasn't quite right. Universe 7 was one of the last teams to arrive, and the boy could only see as many universes as indeed there's 7. There was supposed to be 8. Where's the other one? Before he could ask anyone though, the GP speaks up and introduces himself, welcoming everyone to the tournament.
Thank you all for gathering at such short notice, everyone. As many of you might notice, there are only 7 universes present. It has recently come to my attention that Universe 9 had conducted illegal operations prior to this event, and as such have been dealt with sufficiently. They have been disqualified. Trunks then pipes up and asks what will happen to Universe 9. It has already been erased, as will those universes whose team members are all removed from the arena. There is muttering all about said stadium, and Trunks is shocked to hear this. Gohan turns to him and notices Trunks looking up at the 2 Zenos and his fists sparking with anger, his hair turning golden already. Trunks, calm down. Don't do anything rash.
Those poor innocent lives. They didn't deserve to be erased. They weren't the ones to order that hit on Goku. Why did they have to be punished for something they didn't do? It's my world all over again.
Vegeta then turns around.
Be quiet, boy. I understand this touches nerves, but we have more pressing matters to deal with. Like ensuring that our universe doesn't meet the same fate. Bring your A-game.
He turns back to the front, and Trunks remains quiet, stewing in his own personal frustration. As the tournament begins, Trunks decides the best thing to do instead of stewing in his own anger, sitting out the fight, like Jiren is over there, is best to get the contest over with and take out as many people as possible. Sadly, without the likes of the Trio de Danger, the 70-fighter roster is more frenetic than before, with fewer targets to be had. However, Trunks has picked his target, and the likes of Universe 10 for him are easy pickings, with him taking out half of them within the space of a minute. They had basically been picked on the grounds that they had muscles and they looked strong. But this isn't your typical dumbbell anime. They had nothing else to back it up. Napapa being the biggest casualty of all from Trunks' almost blank onslaught. The Zenos then pick up on this and they ask the GP who that person is. That one? Ah, that is Trunks from Universe 7. Although I believe he originally existed in another reality. Your reality, in fact, sire. He's nodding to the future Zeno. He looks blankly back at the GP.
I don't remember him.
I believe that he was one of the friends of Goku's who tried to save that realm from the apprentice of Goasu of Universe 10.
Can you stop talking? I'm trying to watch the fighting.
He then turns back to the action, getting caught up in the spectacle. Ouch, ouch. The contest continues, and with Trunks ever more determined to finish this off as fast as possible, he quickly polishes off Prum and Hamida of Universe 2 with Ten Shinhan, a little nod to their fight from movie 9 there, as well as polishing off the likes of Frost, who was trying to pounce on Krillin. Vegeta saw all of this go down as well from a distance, and is proud of his son for being just as ruthless with that Frieza clone as he was in the earlier Universe 6 tussle. However, Trunks wasn't getting any enjoyment from this at all. He was getting increasingly impatient. He hadn't resorted to his red powers yet, and he had plenty of power left over. This was just, sport. He was really wanting to speed up the competition. But then Android 17 spots him and asks him what's up. You're acting like a mad dog, kid. What gives? It was still weird to hear assuring words from a person who looked like one of his old enemies from the future. But he did appreciate the call out.
I just cannot bear to be entertaining those two up there.
He points to the Zenos. Don't sweat it. This is what, like half an hour of your day? Just keep polishing up those other fighters and you'll be golden. We'll win for sure. Wow, 17 was just so chill. Yeah, the future 17 was kinda chill too, but it was also cruelly chill. He decided to take it down a notch a bit for the time being and pace himself. However, he had done a lot of damage. He didn't have much of a chance to relax. As his takedown number had been increasing quite quickly, he had garnered the attention of one of the Pride Troopers of Universe 11.
Dispo. He had been very impressed with the rapid progress of this guy, and was now very keen to put this guy down to the test. This speed demon was ready to go. Dispo was eyeing up Trunks with very real gusto. He had been watching Universe 7 very closely, having not seen much interest or intrigue from other universes. Their fighters weren't really showing much potential, but this lot definitely cut the space mustard. Ooh, isn't that really convenient that it's our universe alone that is the only interesting one? How about that? Trunks was still not really getting involved in the tournament, but as their battle moved forward, he was starting to find some enjoyment in it. Thanks to his training in Super Saiyan God, especially with his father, his base powers were slightly more amplified than before, and he was able to at least hold his own against Dispo, but he was still at the mercy of the Pride Trooper's speed.
I appreciate your gusto, kid, said Dispo, but I can outrun you at every turn, and when you make that one little mistake, which I know you will make, you will be unable to respond. Then you will feel the full might of the Pride Troopers and pay for your actions as well as your teammates' actions. Selfish acts of injustice.
Believe me, I had nothing to do with that. I'm as big a hater of this contest as you are. Dispo found this statement quite curious.
Oh? Is that so?
Yeah, I didn't want this tournament to happen. In fact, for the longest time, it was my sole desire to put a stop to Zeno for risking so many lives for his own amusement.
They both look up to the viewing gallery of the Omni King, and this gets Dispo thinking.
Now that you mention it, it is rather egregious that our lives are being toyed with like this.
Ooh, Trunks sensed doubt, so he decided to roll with it. Now you see, Dispo may be fast and strong, but much like his rapid moves, his opinions could flip just as quickly. He's very suggestible. Trunks could now maybe get him to, with the right words, back off perhaps? Give him some space? Perhaps slink away and regroup? However, just before he could convince Dispo to go away and leave him alone, Gohan came in and landed a kick to the head, sending Dispo reeling across the arena.
Hey Trunks, you alright? Thought he could have some help here.
Now, his reaction to this help wasn't what he expected. Trunks moaned with annoyance.
Gohan! You couldn't have picked a worse time! I was about to get him to stop!
However, Gohan couldn't respond back to this because Dispo, thanks to his speed obviously, had gotten back to his mark just as fast as he had left it. He was looking enraged, slighted, betrayed.
How dare you! All that you said, that was a trick to distract me. You can't handle my speed and power, so you resorted to diversions with your friend here. That settles it. Universe 7 cannot be allowed to continue in this contest.
With that, the battle then carries on like it does in the original between Gohan, Dispo and Frieza, only with Trunks replacing the latter obviously. Future Trunks did find the irony in this battle. He was fighting alongside Gohan, who in that orange gi looked eerily similar to his own future version of Gohan. You have to admit that this was pretty cool. It was a very nice way to remember his past time training, with the one being that had given him a chance to save the future. It's a bit of a facsimile here, despite that future now ultimately proving to be pointless. Gohan recognized this too, and smiled when they had a moment. You know, if things weren't so critical right now, I'd see the funny side of this. This pairing, it's timeless. Trunks chuckled at that pun, but he was agreeing with Gohan. This was critical. He decided to use his additional power alongside Gohan's ultimate skill to their advantage. With the bang down, Gohan was able to give Dispo some trouble, with some very, very hard punches when they were able to connect. Didn't always happen because of the speed. With Trunks powering up to Super Saiyan God, the God Ki was able to give Dispo the slip more often than not. He couldn't quite pinpoint Trunks because of God Ki when he was going at full speed, and so he had to resort to shock horror, slowing down. Now this did not suit Dispo's full repertoire fighting style of moves, and so he faltered, and then was slow enough for Gohan to wail on them some more. In the end, a combination of maladies saw Dispo being tossed out of the ring, and this meant that Gohan stayed in for longer than before. I'm glad you stuck around in the past, Trunks. With you around, I've been able to focus some more. We should train together when this is all over. Who knows?
Maybe we could have your kid and Pan play together while we do so. Trunks liked that idea, but wait. How did you know Mai was pregnant, Gohan? Gohan laughed. Oh, once you've had one, you sort of know. You've been very anxious lately, aside from Zeno and all. Huh. Interesting. The tournament progresses, and the typical landmarks hit when they are supposed to. Goku falls into Ultra Instinct thanks to that weird spirit bomb black hole thing, at least twice with no change in proceedings as well. Kefla, Berserker Kale, that all happens as expected. The only real major change I can see happening with Trunks there is that there is one more member towards the end game present. It's 6 for the longest time. Trunks using his Super Saiyan God power to assist his friends as best as he could. However, he is still no match for Toppo solo. Toppo got wind of the dispatching of Dispo, and he wrongly assumed that his friend's offing from the contest was indeed that of trickery and underhanded tactics. So, he wanted to see for himself if Trunks would dare try to pull such a stunt on him, the bastion of justice. If he did, then obviously he had that hidden power to throw him out. In that battle though, he was proved wrong though. Granted, he wasn't liking Trunks more than before, but he could at least see the young man's actions were true, and that no japery was acted out during their battle. Trunks towed the line. As a result, it led to Toppo never resorting to his GOD candidate powers, due to him not being pushed far enough to do so out of ire because Frieza wasn't here to push him over the edge and all. This still didn't save Trunks though, because after exhausting his God Ki, pushing it to its limits, he had no answer to Toppo's consistent energy. With one massive punch from his freakishly massive hands, Toppo sent Trunks flying out of the ring and out of the contest. In the stands, Trunks watched on as the contest progressed, but Beerus was there to offer him kudos. I'm glad to see you forgot about the Omni King and put your universe first, kiddo. You use God Ki rather well, or at least, you don't make a mockery of it. Not bad. Whis nodded in agreement, and Trunks decided to take the compliment. It was better for Beerus to be sort of happy with him rather than being angry at him. In the final battle though, with Jiren present and a mastered Ultra Instinct Goku failing, Goku didn't have the backup though from Frieza since he wasn't involved, and Trunks was out of the contest, so there was no backup. As a result, Goku fell out of the ring when Jiren had snuffed him, but he himself was rather weakened. However, that didn't matter because Jiren's not going to win here. The tournament time limit passes and no winner is yet to have been called. Jiren and Universe 11 were confused. Goku had been thrown out. Why hadn't the time stopped there and then and Jiren declared the winner? Just then, rubble moved from one of the remains of the arena in the corner, and out popped Android 17. He and Jiren looked at each other, and the latter sighed. Universe 7. 17 blinked. Huh, guess it's a tie. Indeed, it was a tie. When it came to the wish, thankfully, 17 and Jiren had a consensus. This tournament was kind of a dumb thing to happen, and everything should be reverted back to the way it was. Everyone brought back. Jiren's logic coming from the manga, which he stated quite a few times that he didn't like the idea of the tournament, and 17 was reckoning the same thing, choosing to put his desire for a boat on the back burner. For now, Jiren and Goku met one last time before they all departed, and Jiren did have to admit that the tenacity of Goku and Universe 7's desire to survive were notable, and they promised to meet again in less auspicious terms. Now having settled everything here, Whis took the Universe 7 party back home, and indeed, there was another party to be had later that night. They thought that's good enough for a victory. Mai was very pleased to see Trunks again, and that he hadn't been too badly injured. He was relieved to be back as well, and had vowed to get over the Omni King for what he had done. I realized that I was becoming obsessed with it. It was clouding my judgment. Weirdly enough, 17 over there was the guy to tip me back from the brink. Never thought I'd hear myself say that. Mai, though, was just glad he came back safe, and that they could perhaps start a new life together. No more surprises. In the months after, Mai and Trunks had begun to prepare for their child's arrival. Mai was starting to really show, and was beaming with delight at the prospect of having children, after having not too long ago having to put her personal desires aside for the sake of saving the world and fighting with the resistance. Her rifle was now fully retired, and placed pride of place in their living room on a stand above the fireplace, as a reminder of their past life, and that chapter had firmly been closed, that being the only remnant left. One good thing about No More Timeline of the Future, though, it did mean that it was well and truly done with. That was about the only good thing to come from it, mind you. Yeah, obviously. Having a noticeable bump now, Mai had spent her time wondering what to do with herself and how to spend her time once the baby had been born. Present Mai often came by and was amazed to see herself pregnant with Trunks' kid, albeit a future version. She kept fantasizing about having a romantic relationship with her version of Trunks and when they grew up getting married, and future Mai did find this amusing, but she definitely tried to instill in this version of Mai to follow her heart and not necessarily feel the need to copy her directly. You never know who might come along in your future. It might not be Trunks. And that's the beauty of it. Sometimes time comes along and surprises you. Hopefully more nice surprises than bad ones. She looked to her rifle again and pondered more about what her life will be now. More months pass. Trunks had carried out his promise to Gohan and they were training together in their spare time. The Del and Mai got to know each other some more because they were obviously spending more time together, and Pan was getting very excited to have a new friend come along not too long from now. Mai on the verge of giving birth any day now. And obviously, Whis decided to offer his birthing services again. Well, it would be unfair of me not to, given I did so with Bulma. With them both at their peak of fitness, they tagged along with Goku and Vegeta to the Arctic, in the reports of there might be quite a lot of Dragon Balls up there. They were on their mission from Bulma to collect them for, personal reasons. She didn't particularly feel like stating it or going to the tundra, but it was something to fill their afternoon. But what they did find there wasn't great. Shenron had been summoned already, and some goons from the Frieza force, or what was left of it, had wished for Frieza's return, clearly, because sure enough, he was right there. And since he died on Earth the last time, and in relatively one piece, he was there and not in bits. With Shenron then departing up into the sky, Frieza was very pleased to see everyone actually welcoming him right back into the land of the living. Good day, Saiyans. I'm sorry I can't stick around to tussle with you some more, but I'm afraid duty calls. I have rather a busy schedule. Don't worry though, I'm sure we will see each other again soon. I've gotten much stronger than before, Goku. You won't want to miss that. Goku was both angered and yet intrigued. Vegeta, though, was having none of it. He immediately powered up to Super Saiyan Blue Evolution and aimed a blast at Frieza head-on. But the Tyrant sparked golden and aimed an I-beam in Vegeta's face, blinding the prince, causing the others to tend to him immediately, and Frieza to, in the hubbub, skulk away to his ship, hovering in the upper atmosphere. When Vegeta had regained his vision, he cursed everyone around for not going after Frieza, but Trunks pointed out that he won't get far. With 4 of them stronger than before, and Goku having Ultra Instinct, hopefully working, Frieza won't last long. Oh, Trunks. Who do you think he's going to run into in the fullness of time? Time had come. Future Mai could feel her body urging their little one out into the world. Whis had actually arrived a little late than he had promised, apologising for being inconvenient, and Bulma giving him an earful for not being attentive enough and saying to him that he won't be getting as many sweet treats in return that he'd been promised. Now, you would obviously think that a cosmic being such as Whis wouldn't be bothered by such a statement about candy. Well, he was. He genuinely was upset and apologetic for being late. I'm so sorry to be so late, but Lord Beerus was very insistent that...
I don't care. Do to Mai what you did to me.
Right, Bulma. Mai was very uncomfortable, and Bulma was very glad that she didn't get as big as she was right now. That would have looked very painful if you had to do that naturally, had they not had an angel on call as a midwife. Well, with the flick of his staff, just like with Bulla, Whis delivered the little bundle of joy quite cleanly and effortlessly, like it was a natural. The shrieks of a newborn were heard amongst the halls of Capsule Corp once more. Trunks had been around the whole time, in fact, but had been told to be quiet by the likes of his past father. Vegeta had been through all of this before, twice in fact, with Trunks and Bulla, and told his son that the best thing to do was to not get in the way. However, now he was here to witness the arrival of his first child, a boy. Now, what do we do with the name? Well, Trunks is Trunks, but what about Mai? What's she got to do with clothing? Well, if you were to translate Mai, one meaning could be using this kanji, which translates roughly to linen robe. Ooh, clothing! It's almost destiny, right, Trunks X Mai? Kitty hams, I know you're going to be happy about that one. So, how about a rejigging of the word, hipari? You know, it's like some sort of sleepwear for the summer period. You know, quite loosely some sort of underwear. So, pari, I think. So, hipari, pari. Baby Pari was a very relaxed and calm baby. Once the initial cries of new life had abated, he was a very sleepy soul, and Bulma was very surprised given how much turmoil the pair had been through in the future prior to their settling in the past and all that Goku Black stuff. Trunks and Mai, though, weren't all that surprised.
I guess he's acting what we've been longing to act for the longest time. To rest, relax and whatnot,
Trunks stated with pride. At last, they had a family, and the pain of Zeno was gone. The future hero had something else on his mind to focus on. Bulma was now in a situation where she had become, sort of, a grandmother. She sought Chi-Chi's counsel with how to deal with the conundrum. She would have asked her own mother for advice, but she didn't seem to be all that fazed at all. And she was going to become a great-grandmother, you know, despite the whole future paradox thing and them not being directly related, but yet also related. But Chi-Chi's advice was to simply go along with it. Quite flexible and easygoing for her, but that was easier said than done. Chi-Chi, my own daughter is like, only 18 months older than my grandson? How weird is that? Well, it wasn't that bizarre to have such a gap between kids as Chi-Chi stated. After all, Goten and Gohan had about 11 years between each other in terms of age, and that didn't bother them at all. In fact, it was absolutely fantastic. Gohan was a brilliant bigger brother. And as the ladies were discussing the intrigue between temporal tots, Vegeta was very pleased to have a grandson, and one that looked more like a Saiyan than his own Trunks. Pari had a black fleck of hair, and his face was very like his kind, Saiyans.
Excellent. Even though his name is not like a Saiyan's, at least he looks the part.
Trunks laughed this off though. He knew his father wasn't going to disown his own progeny over the sake of names. So, as long as the prince was happy, that was what counted. However, it wasn't all fun and games. Deep in space, the events of the Broly movie were unfolding, including the discovery of Broly and Paragus on Vampa. Chilai and Lemmo were the ones to find them, like before, since everything up to episode 66 of Super was identical to the original series, so between then, the original situation with the Frieza Force is pretty identical, including the acquisition of personnel. The Dragon Balls of Earth are still the subject of Frieza's attention, and despite the addition of another very strong Super Saiyan into his mind, it was not something that concerned him too much. After all, he now had a strong Saiyan of his own, and even though he didn't seem to have the Super Saiyan power himself yet, he reckoned that with a little bit of training and knocking him around himself, that would bring that out in the fullness of time. And speaking of time, Cronoa had dropped in from time to time and requested Future Trunks' assistance for various missions across time and space, so as to make up for his messing around with time back in the Cell saga. She'd grown quite close with Trunks actually, as a friend, and relied on him quite regularly for these situations, deeming him a reliable time patroller, and somebody she could gel with quite nicely. It was just a shame that he was a mortal being. She would have quite liked to have kept him around for almost eternity, really. Perhaps maybe, if he does really, really well, he and his family could have their lives extended, perhaps. But would they want that? Well, anyway, she did have that power she could bestow upon the worthiest of time patrollers, so, it was always up for debate. For now, though, she was very happy at the arrival of Pari, and despite her knowing his future and what he would do, she had to keep that very much a secret. It almost drove her mad to keep that from Trunks. She wanted to tell him, but she was the supreme Kai of time. There was no reason to tell him about Pari's future, and so she had to keep her mouth shut. But, she did allow Trunks to have some time with his boy. And instead, she was able to vent a little about Frieza. She had to get something out. Be careful of that one. He's up to something. Really? Up to what? Said Mai, who had just put Pari to bed after a play session with Cronoa. Oh, the usual, the kind of stuff he does. He likes to mess around with the Saiyans. That's all I can say.
Granted Vegeta, who had been sitting in a chair nearby paying half attention. That's not exactly a big reveal. Frieza is always up to something. That's what he lives for. Perhaps enlighten us more helpfully next time.
Cronoa grumped. Well, if you're going to be that crass with me, Prince of all Saiyans, maybe I won't tell you. She got up to leave, but told Trunks to be prepared in case Frieza did rock up. With that in the back of his mind, Trunks did his best to train with his father, who was always happy to prepare for Frieza's meddling if it came around. In that time, Trunks was starting to figure out the knack behind Super Saiyan Blue, having not had the time to do it prior. And who better to help him but the guy who had perfected it and figured a lot of things out about Super Saiyan God all out on his own. Vegeta felt like Trunks should pull his weight around here too, since he was now going to be living in this time permanently, and especially since he had a kid in this timeline, he wasn't really going to be going anywhere now. And besides, Trunks was a very good pupil, and he in turn was a good figure to look up to for the present Trunks. He could take a leaf out of his own future self's book, so a sequel of his own book. But he did his best to follow along with the basic principles of Super Saiyan Blue, despite him not knowing the God Key initial steps. That's present Trunks, by the way.
You will do well to heed these lessons now, so when you're of age, you too will be able to ascend.
Present Trunks was quite bold at this.
Well, if my future self can do it, then so can I. Ha!
Future Trunks laughed.
You're so like I was when I was your age. Bring with hope. I'm glad you'll get to stay that way. You'll go far, kid.
This bonding session went very well, right up to the point when Dende had told the group that indeed, Frieza's men were on the planet, and they were looking for Dragon Balls. With the gang being mobilized for the event, Frieza wasn't that far behind. Having had the jump on getting the balls much more competently than before in the movie, since present Trunks wasn't around to warn his mother on the telephone like in the movie, this was more of a surprise, but it wouldn't really amount to too much. Frieza was sadly still unable to get his dream of being 5 centimeters taller. However, he was still able to set Broly on the likes of Vegeta, but this time, there was Future Trunks there too, for good measure. Mai, though, had been very concerned that Trunks was getting obsessed with training, getting himself embroiled in something like this, despite vowing to step back and focus on his family, something that he had been actually craving for so long before, is in the future especially, whilst under the boot of Goku Black.
Mai, I can't explain it, but being around Dad awakes the Saiyan in me. It's hard, but I have potential to stop Earth from being destroyed, and since I couldn't save our old home, I can only do my best in protecting this one. And this time, I've got help.
I hope you're right, tapered off Mai, as she sort of gave her partner the permission to go, yet not really. Trunks was actually feeling a little guilty about this, but he sort of had to go since Vegeta wasn't really giving him a say in the matter. And he also doubted that Beerus would be all that impressed either, that Trunks was being stubborn again. Because remember, that stubborn act almost got him erased before Kranoa stepped in.
Oh man, where's the Time Patrol when you need them?
The fight with Broly though was a little more even than before, with the third Saiyan on board acting as support for Vegeta. This meant that Broly was being challenged more and more, as well as being less likely to go berserk. That is until Frieza's act of offing Paragus reared its ugly and white purple head, with Broly going ballistic over the accidental death of his father. The 3 Saiyans had to step up even further, and, would you believe, Trunks actually had to help Golden Frieza out, whilst Goku and Vegeta instant transmitted away to regroup and get the fusion angle ready for use and Gogeta stepping in. With Trunks helping Frieza, ironically, Frieza didn't get as badly beaten up as he did in the movie, so unfortunately that little comedic gag was gone. Frieza actually noted the irony from this but back when they first met.
To think how far we've come. Our first interactions involved that sword of yours, but now that sword is aimed at another. Who would have thought that things would have gone this way, eh, Trunks?
Not me, but trust me, if I could go back in time to then, I'd still do the same thing. We're not friends.
Oh, trust me, the feeling's mutual. Your act proved to be for the best.
With that moment of reflecting over, the pair were able to, not exactly control Broly, at least give the Super Saiyan Rager the runaround with 2 powers bouncing around at the same time. When Gogeta arrived, Frieza and Trunks fell back and let the fusion do its thing, the tyrant noting the power of Gogeta and internally congratulating himself for the tenacity of Saiyans, him discovering it personally, especially having directly fought one with the aid of a half Saiyan for an hour and a half. That same feeling of intrigue from the movie still residing here. When the fight was done and Broly had been wished away by the likes of Chilai, thus saving his life, Gogeta still let Frieza go, much to the chagrin of Trunks. But when asked later about this, Vegeta pointed out that they had really nothing to worry about regarding the Emperor in the long run.
Don't worry, we're always one step ahead of him. And besides, I think he quite likes having us around. We complete him, so it would be in his best interest not to be rid of us.
Trunks was still very perplexed by this ideology, but, despite possessing Saiyan traits and mannerisms, he still had some human in him. There's still some very deep and puzzling mysteries to be had with this one. Years later, and we approach the end of Z. Pari now is a 4-year-old young boy, and is a very chipper fighter thanks to the tutelage of his grandfather Vegeta. In that time, Trunks had finally been able to keep his promise to Mai and had backed off considerably from fighting in the front lines, only offering to help when the need arose and there was a last resort. Like with the situation when the Dragon team as a whole had to fight alongside one another against the galactic prisoners before Moro showed up around about chapter 58 of the manga. Yeah, he did have to step up then and Mai did allow that. Aside from that, he, Mai and Pari were happy, keeping a low profile, and that is what they like to keep it as. However, the World Martial Arts Tournament was something to look at as a group bonding exercise, a bit of fun. And after all, Trunks and Mai could really use the money. They really didn't like getting handouts from Bulma and so had requested not too long ago to be cut off. They wanted to make their own way in life and had since moved out in the countryside as well, that being the final handout from Bulma. Pari, though, wanted to fight. He wanted to test his might against not only the likes of the Dragon team, his friends and mentors, but also against the likes of Pan. He and Pan had become rivals of sorts. Nothing particularly nasty or anything, but since Bulla wasn't really all into sparring, the pair had naturally gravitated towards each other as competitive angles. They would get on quite well, and in the tournament, they would meet and do battle, promising to their parents not to destroy the arena because it would look odd for a bunch of 4 and 5-year-olds destroying a whole arena. And since that would probably actually happen later on with Goku and Vegeta anyway, so don't ruin it for them. Who would win against those two? Well, it'd be the likes of Pan still. Why? Well, it's simply down to the fact that Gohan's smarts and skills were just about better than Trunks's, and despite Vegeta's excellent training with Pari, it did get quite stressful for the young lad, and their sessions would be a little bit sporadic, a little bit inconsistent. So the more consistent routine from Pan paid dividends in the end. But Pari still took it well, taking on board his parents' overview on life. Don't get stressed out about such things. It's not worth it. This more laid-back lifestyle was something of which the trio absolutely adored and relished. And in fact, this meant that they actually were having another kid on the way, all to add to their relaxed menagerie. All was looking up for them, and I think they deserve it. A nice balance of Dragon Team life and their own life. And that's where we end things. So what do you folks think? Do you feel that this would be a lovely way to see out Future Trunks and Mai's life settling down like this? Leave a comment below, and let's get this discussion going. And I shall see you in the next video. Catch you later!